Joining us now, Fox News anchor and correspondent Chanley Painter. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us in St. Louis.
Absolutely. How are you today?
Doing great. So, following the Charlie Kirk story in the trial
Yes,
that's going on, oh boy, I think that there's a lot of people that feel like the judge when they're going through the
hmm
evidence. And there was that viral video where they showed the gunshot and the judge winced, like he saw it and it
yes,
kind of like
yes,
startled him. I think there's a
right.
lot of people feeling that way about every bit of evidence that's been presented so far in this trial. How do you think it's going?
Yeah, so this preliminary hearing it was definitely one for the book. So usually the standard is probable cause for the preliminary hearing. That is the standard in Utah. So it's a very low bar legally as far as what prosecutors have to put up as evidence. And they put 5 days of evidence almost up before this judge. In my opinion, there's probable cause met on day one. As you said, there's video evidence in this case, surveillance video that investigators say is Tyler Robinson on the campus of Utah Valley University before, during, and after the shooting. We have forensic evidence, DNA tying him to the alleged murder weapon. We heard that in court, and to the items found around the alleged murder weapon. We have his former roommate and boyfriend, Lance Twiggs. Video was played before everyone where he confessed. Lance said he confessed to him at least 3 times via handwritten note, text message, and in person, expressed regret about what he did, why he did it. The evidence is overwhelming, and yet at the end of the week, on Friday, this preliminary hearing ended, the judge still didn't make a decision. He's going to have the parties come back September 1st. They're going to brief the issues, and then they're going to argue about it. So it really is an anomaly to have such a tedious and uh, pro prolonged preliminary hearing at this stage. So really what this means, Ryan, is it'll be a year. Charlie Kirk was
Hmm.
murdered September 10th of last year. We're a year into this case, and we still don't have it bound over for a trial, and we still don't have this defendant enter a formal arraignment, a formal plea. That's really unheard of.
Wow. Do you think they keep saying death penalty is still on the table? Is that still the
It
case?
is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So death penalty will remain on the table. That is something the defense is trying. I think that is almost the sole goal of this defense of Tyler Robinson. He has some out of state attorneys, high powered defense attorneys, and they are litigating every motion, every part of this case. That is their job. And I believe that they are the reason that we are so delayed, because they are litigating everything and they're making the prosecution put up the evidence, yet they're trying to keep evidence from the public. And I think their sole goal is to eventually somehow convince the prosecutors to take the death penalty off the table for some type of plea. That would be a huge win for them as a defense team. So that, I believe, is their goal. They already did ask once to have the judge take the death penalty off the table as a sanction for the prosecutor speaking about the case publicly. And obviously that was
Hmm.
disproportionate and inappropriate at that stage. But I think that is their goal here ultimately.
Yeah, and I think that would make sense if they're trying to perhaps work on something. And at this point, I would almost feel like the prosecution, they have more than enough evidence. I don't even know why they would consider a plea other than just
Exactly.
saving the court some time.
Exactly. There's no motivation for prosecutors to take the death penalty off the table because they have all of the aggravating circumstances in which to meet the burden to prove or to show that a jury that not only is he responsible beyond a reasonable doubt, but the next stage of that trial, if he is convicted, would be a sentencing phase or the death penalty phase, in which they would hear aggravating factors as to why they should vote for the death penalty. His defense would put on mitigating factors, and here the prosecutors believe they can meet those standards. So what would motivate them to do that other than possibly, the Kirk family, as far as what we've heard, Erica doesn't have a position one way or the other. She's deferring to the prosecutors as far as what they believe
Mhm.
as the death penalty goes. But right now it's on the table, and the prosecutors want to go to trial, and they want to pursue this and pursue justice to the fullest.
Yeah, and making this whole process public, that was something that some people wondered about. You
Yes,
found that there's a lot of commentators out there that have said some pretty inaccurate, and that's to say it
yes,
lightly, inaccurate things about Charlie Kirk and this whole situation with the assassination. So the
right.
public being able to see this evidence as it's laid out, it's so overwhelming. Was that the goal here, to make it public so
Yes.
people can really see, okay, there's no reason to doubt it anymore?
That is the position of prosecutors. That is the position of the Kirk family. Erica Kirk, the family lawyer, took to the podium multiple times last week during this hearing to say, please, judge, show everything, show all the videos, show every piece of evidence, because we want the world to see what happened to Charlie Kirk, and to really these naysayers. There's so many conspiracy theories around what happened, as you kind of mentioned on. They want to nip that in the bud, if you will. They want to say, here's the evidence, here's what happened, here's the video, so that people can see it for themselves and not question or rely on people who may twist the truth or try to spin something as it isn't. If the cameras are in the courtroom, there's transparency. So we see that, and we see the defense over here trying to keep parts of this evidence away from the public. They're doing the opposite. They want to seal exhibits. They don't want people to see this certain videos because they feel it'll prejudice their client so much that they can't impanel a fair jury when it comes to a time of trial. So it really is a battle inside this courtroom. And ultimately, the judge allowed one camera, a very limited camera. We were able to see most of it, but we were able to I was in the courtroom every day, most every day last week, to see it for yourself. But thankfully, the judge is understanding and realizes the importance of having this evidence out there because of the controversy kind of surrounding it and people wanting to profit off of wild conspiracy theories.
Right. From your experience and when looking at the evidence that's presented, and you're right, multiple days of evidence, it seems overwhelming in the prosecution's favor. Have you ever seen anything like this, so overwhelming, one-sided?
There are a lot of cases that have evidence that are overwhelming. This is probably one of the most high-profile cases, right, because of who Charlie Kirk was and how publicly he was assassinated and the fallout since then. And I think that's one reason the judge did want to take so long to have this preliminary hearing. Again, in the normal course of a criminal trial, preliminary hearing could last 30 minutes because the standard is so low. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no jury. It's just a judge saying, hey, there's a reasonable belief that Tyler Robinson committed this crime. And that could have been done on Monday of last week, right? But because of the nature of this case and because the prosecution and the family want all the evidence out there as much as possible to combat any naysayers, that's what we saw here, something a little above and beyond what we would normally see because of the nature of this case.
This is kind of a weird question, but you have the one other high-profile case that happened in the assassination of the healthcare CEO, Luigi Mangione.
Yes.
So, are there any supporters of Chanley Painter that you know of? Excuse me, that's your name. Is there any supporters of of Fox News anchor and correspondent Chanley Painter joining us here? But when you have the Charlie Kirk assassin in court, do you find there's any supporters of him out there that you know of, or anyone out there?
And I guess I should say to the listeners out there, I'm an attorney. Not only Fox News anchor, but I'm an attorney. I was a former prosecutor, so I do speak from experience in that way. I've been in courtrooms all over the country for years and years and years. I've seen a lot of high-profile cases from inside the courtroom, and yes, this was definitely maybe not as big because it wasn't a trial; it's a preliminary hearing, so it wasn't as big as maybe some Johnny Depp or Brian Koberger cases I've been to. But they had the public. Like people could show up for only 14 seats for the public inside the courtroom. So you would have people line up the night before, like at 6 o'clock the night before. They would stay all night out in front of the courthouse to have a seat inside that courtroom. And you had mostly, you had a mix. You had a couple of mother or daughter or someone who maybe attended Utah Valley University. They're there for the Kirk family. They saw what happened maybe, and they wanted to show up for court in support. But you also saw in that crowd those who question the evidence. I talked to a lot of them standing in line, and they didn't think it was black and white, or they thought that they didn't see any evidence. Or when I tried to challenge them with what we did see in court, they thought, oh, well, that was planted, or I don't believe this. So you had a mix in that crowd of public to the seating inside the courtroom of both supporters and those who want to question the government.
Yeah. Fox News anchor and correspondent Chanley Painter, I know that you've been covering a lot. If people wanted to follow you and your coverage and what you're doing, where can they find you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I guess it's X now, not really Twitter, right? The Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I have an account there. It's what is my handle? At Chanley S. Painter on Twitter. I have an Instagram account, of course, as well, at Chanley Shay. So I try to do updates along the way from whatever I'm covering. So I
I
love a
still call
follow.
it Twitter. You know,
Yeah, me too.
if there was a trial that persecuted or prosecuted rather everyone that still calls it Twitter, I would be on that list because
Same.
I cannot
It's
call it
just
X.
weird
It's
to
just
say X. It is.
I know it is weird. All right, Chanley Painter, thank you so much for joining us. We really
Of
appreciate it,
course,
and thank you for all
anytime.
your
Thank
work.
you.